Okay, we're officially recording. So, I love all the stuff you put together in the folder. Great job with your scene list, and I loved reading the new scenes that you'd come up with about the Dodger game and all of the venues, so it was good. I liked that. I was hoping that that would happen, where it's like, okay, we kind of get you on a track with some momentum and kind of seeing like, oh, this is the section that we need, and being able for you just to kind of roll with it and find all those new scenes that you wanted to add. So it was really good.
Good.
So kind of, I wanted to start out with you just kind of filling me in a little bit with how you're feeling about the story and kind of where you're at with just with feeling comfortable about the arc that you're creating, and just any specific questions that you have right now that we can address, and then I'll kind of steer us kind of where I think we need to go next. But I kind of wanted to get some data from you about where you're at with the story and what questions you have. So.
I don't know if I have any questions, really.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Not that I can think of at the moment.
Okay. So you're feeling okay with the kind of the layout that we have going, and the scene list that you've got developed. It feels okay to you about the story and the kind of the shape that it's taking.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I think we need to look at next is, because we have some questions that we still need to answer, and I think at this point they really all lean on Ashley and on her. Basically, it's kind of like identifying that big thing that's in the way, right, between her and Nate. And so I think it's gonna, and so that really comes back to her internal journey and her internal arc of, and kind of what I'm seeing take shape and what you've explained to me about, kind of her worldview. It really comes down to it's a worldview for her, and the worldview that she's learned from watching her parents get divorced, right? And watching that situation, and how she's kind of learned that you need to protect yourself, right, from getting hurt. You put distance between you and the person that hurt you, and that you protect yourself from ever letting that happen again. And so I think that there's going to be those scenes in the beginning hook where we kind of establish this worldview. So I think that would be a really good place for us to focus our attention this week, would be really how we clearly set up Ashley's worldview as, I was hurt once, and I'm never letting that happen to me again. And my mom was hurt, and she's never letting that happen to her again. And this is why this is my strategy. My primary strategy is distance and protection, whether it's physical distance, because that's why I moved to Dallas, or whether it's emotional distance, and then those walls of protecting distance physically, distance emotionally, and that is how we survive in this world. And so I think those would be really interesting things to look at and have you flesh out as her character, and in those the little conversational things that are going to happen. And I think also maybe really contrasting her character with Sarah's character, and showing that they have very different viewpoints, and maybe even that Sarah and Ashley used to be very similar in their view of love and all of those things, and now how Ashley has really turned, and she's this way, and she's really come along. Maybe she even used to think that her mother was, didn't like the way that her mother approached love, and wished that they could be closer to her father and all those things, but now she realizes, or she agrees, that she thinks that she was right, or that this is really what we have to do. So I think really having you hone in on Ashley's character and on, what her view would be of the world and why she thinks the way she thinks, and then dropping those things in the beginning hook and really laying that groundwork for us understanding who she is, by the time she meets Nate. And then, because I think really nailing that in the beginning hook is going to lead us to, that's a really great setup for us then to have to deal with, because then now she has to fight that worldview all the way through the middle, because now you've got Nate being the way he is, and so then it's going to become this battle where then eventually she kind of like either she thinks she's going to give it up, like at the picnic where she's really coming around to this other way of being, and then Millie will show up, and that'll just be a big slam where she's like, see, I was right the whole time, and she kind of reverts back, and then Nate's going to have to try to win her back over, right, to the other side. And so we can kind of see how that gets set up. At the beginning, we really establish her worldview and how she came to be this way, and that she very much is solidified in this worldview of it's really cynical, right? It's cynical about love, and it's really, protection at all costs, and who cares what I have to lose? Maybe that means I don't get to have true love. Maybe that means I end up alone, or maybe that means I end up with a hollow relationship if I allow myself to have any relationship at all. I'm going to become the crazy cat lady, or whatever, right? Whatever her view is that she has at the beginning, contrasting that with Sarah, and then firming it up because this is what she saw her mother go through. And all that will be very believable. We'll have the friends talk about how she changed and why she changed, and how, so I think that would be really a good way to focus on establishing this beginning hook, establishing her character, and then that will give us something really fun to play with in the middle build when Nate shows up and they have to spend all this time together, and she's going to be, going back and forth on whether or not to let him in. So, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Makes a lot of sense.
So I think there's lots of different ways, maybe to explore this, and then, and it's kind of might at first seem like it's it's a lot of words that might not even end up in the book necessarily, but it's really ways, so whether it was to be, doing, let's say, like journal entries from Ashley's point of view, maybe even writing a scene from when she was a kid, watching the way her parents interacted, or writing a scene from when her parents get divorced. These sort of things, when her mom first takes her to Dallas. And these might be things that you can use kind of as flashback thoughts or something later, but we won't know necessarily if they fit or where they fit, but I think it would still be good things for you to explore, would be to write those sort of scenes of her, kind of these establishing scenes in the story of Ashley's life, how she transitioned from someone who believed in love, right, and believed in being vulnerable to love, right, and whatever her worldview was, to this hard lesson that we learn about it doesn't always work out, and it can hurt. It can really hurt. And it's interesting maybe going from someone who had never went, who Ashley was pre-divorce, right, pre her parents' divorce, to who Ashley is post her parents' divorce, but before she's ever personally had her heart broken, right, to now this new Ashley that is post-parents' divorce, post-Nate horrible, heartbroken thing. You know what I mean? You can kind of see that transition between who she was as this young, naive, innocent, to she's had a hard lesson when you have to go through your parents' divorce, to now she's had to go through her own breakup. And now that's the person that starts the story, right? Our story opens with this, war-torn heart of Ashley's, right? And she's coming in that way. So I think it'd be good for you to kind of explore some of those things and kind of have a really clear picture in your head of who Ashley is when the story opens, so that way we can drop in those things. And find a way to do it. There's going to be a little bit of subtle subtext, passive-aggressive, maybe conversations with Sarah or with her parent, with her mom, and with the two moms, right? And then with the high school, and kind of just doling it out a little at a time for our reader, right? And so then they're getting a really clear picture of her inner voice, as she narrates the story for us. And then that way we'll have a really clear picture for when she comes face to face with Nate, that we're going to be like, oh, this is really what the story is all about, is her having to confront this worldview. And she's going to have to get over this worldview if she's ever going to find love, right? So it's kind of that thing. So I think just for a couple different homework assignments kind of going parallel to one another, just depending on what your time allows and, and how what you're able to get done or feel okay with doing, would be to, exploring Ashley's character in those three places. So, when she's a kid, so pre-divorce, and maybe during the divorce, and then post-divorce, right? Whether you do it through, actual scenes, or whether you just do it through journal entry, or even just through your